know what? There's this Salesforce thing going on this weekend and it's free. Why don't you come along? Because she knew I was out there looking to figure out where I was going to enter tech.
That is Rachel Watson, a tech architecture delivery associate manager with Accenture. And I'm Josh Burke, a developer evangelist with Salesforce. And here on the Salesforce Developer Podcast, you will hear stories and insights from developers for developers. And yes, it did take me a few times to get Rachel's title correct. However, today we are going to talk about 100 Days of Trailhead and 100 Days of Apps. And in that quote, Rachel is talking about Paula Nelson getting her to a certain 2-day workshop that also involved Chris Duarte and Jessica Murphy.
Because we know front-end development at that point.
Right.
And we also knew some back-end development and we saw her create an object, create some fields, do some automation in a matter of 10 minutes. And we were clicking along with her. And I elbowed Jessica and I was like, that would have been 3 pages of code. I was like, I'm sold. I'm doing this. And she's like looking at me like, what's going on? So yeah, that's how that happened.
And from there, Jessica and Rachel would both get involved both in Salesforce development, but also the Salesforce ecosystem, which, if you might recall from Jessica Murphy's episode, takes the form of Salesforce Saturday.
Well, we tried a bunch of different local groups and trying to find information that we were looking for, and we didn't seem to find it. And so we heard about what Stephanie Herrera was doing in Austin, and Paula, Jessica, and I both decided that we were going to start one here in Phoenix because honestly, we didn't know squat at that point. I mean, Paula did, but we didn't. And we were like, we're building this as much for us as the community because we're the type of people that we're like, okay, so here is a gap. How can we solve for this gap?
Right.
So we're like, this is clearly needed, and we're just going to create a space for it. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be anyway. It's supposed to be the community get together, learning and sharing. That concept didn't sound like we had to know all the answers, and we verified that with Stephanie. She said, heck no, you don't have to know all the answers. I said, good, because we don't. And we just set it up, and it really worked out really well. People came in, and still come in at all different levels. And, we just let them know that this is a very sharing environment. You bring what you know, whether that's Salesforce knowledge, industry knowledge, whatever you got, we want it. And we just have this really awesome sharing community.
So let's go into 100 Days of Trailhead. What was the start of that? Actually,
Jessica was super duper sick with the flu. And I mean, one of those 103 fever kind of situations. Yeah.
Oh.
And so she wakes up and she's like, hey, I have this great idea. And I was like, that's fabulous. Okay, tell me what your idea is. And so she tells me that, we should do 100 days of code. So that's from the greater, coding community. And we should bring that to Salesforce. Mm-hmm. I said, I think that's a great idea. Now go back to sleep and we'll talk about it later.
Would you credit the fever for potentially the invention or was it just all Jessica?
Because here's the thing. Then she's like, but no. And then she's downloading all these ideas on how she's thought this out and everything. I go, great, write it down. And then we'll talk about it when you wake up again, and you feel a little bit better. Well, she wrote it down, but then she tweets, that's what we're doing. And then she goes back to sleep. And then later on, she wakes up and she goes, oh no, BTW.
Oh.
I just tweeted that. I was like,
by the way, we're off to the races.
Great. Thanks. That was awesome. I mean, I was co-signing on that anyway. It's not like I wasn't. It just was like, you are sick as a dog. Are you kidding me right now? I was like, because I was basically saying, get a little bit better. We'll really dig into this, create a framework and launch it. No.
Nope.
She gets really passionate.
Okay,
I mean, we both get passionate about stuff, but she gets really passionate about stuff. And she's like, I'm hitting the green go button. I was like, okay, whatever. Here we go.
Okay, so let's go into the steps after the tweet across the bow, shall we say. What was that framework going to look like? Describe to me how 100 Days of Trailhead works.
We gave credit to the person who started 100 Days of Code, and Jessica knows his name, and I don't off the top of my head. It's a Google away, though.
Gotcha.
Basically, we just said, we just followed his rules, essentially. Code an hour every single day, and work towards getting better. That's essentially what it all went down to. And then we wanted there to be accountability, much like you have accountability at the gym or what have you. So tweet out. We gave a format to tweet and like a hashtag and so forth. And then, so some people were like, I actually learned how to tweet with the 100 Days of Code. And we're like, well, that's awesome. That wasn't an intended part, but cool. That's great. And then people were tweeting out their successes. We encourage that, encourage people to encourage others and celebrate each other's successes, minor or not so minor. We're like, even if it was a code block that you were grinding on and you got past it, we can celebrate that. It doesn't have to be ginormous. And so it became this really great place that people, were encouraging each other and celebrating each other's successes. And people have now gotten, certifications, job advances, new jobs. You go promotions, you go down the list. It's amazing. And all the stuff that comes through during 100 Days of Trailhead. And every year it seems to get more and more robust. So the first year was 100 Days of Code. The second year, we switched over to 100 Days of Trailhead because we got a lot of feedback from the community that said, hey, listen, a group of us aren't really like programmatic developers, but we want to do it too. And we're like, okay. So Jessica's like, bouncing it back and forth with me, like, how can we do this? And she goes, what about 100 Days of Trailhead? I said, that sounds fabulous. Let's do that.
So to clarify, it started as 100 Days of Code, basically 100 Days of Code for Salesforce developers. Now it's 100 Days of Trailhead, which includes some subcategories, including like 100 Days of Learning and also 100 Days of App Building or 100 Days of Apps. And this is designed to get people a foot in the door for building an application for the App Exchange.
What we've seen is a lot of people have not considered going on the App Exchange or trying to build anything for the App Exchange. And we're trying to encourage folks that ordinarily wouldn't be on the App Exchange to give it a go. And, at least give a shot at building an app. And whether they end up putting it on the App Exchange or not, that's totally up to them. But at least kind of playing around with the idea, because there's so many different things that if we all just create a space and say, here's a safe space to try XYZ, how many more of us would try stuff?
Right. Like, what's the expected level of polish that you have seen and expect to see from the apps themselves?
See, the thing about it is when you're submitting, you tell what your level is. Like, how long have you been working in Salesforce or working with Salesforce, training with Salesforce, whatever that looks like? And what is your experience level? Do you consider yourself, a configuration app builder? Do you consider yourself more of an admin? Do you consider yourself beginner? Where do you rank yourself so we can really look at this accordingly? Because there's no like, well, I just got started, so I can't even try. No, that's not true. Pair up with somebody that has more experience than you, rather, and, go for it.
And what's the worst that's going to happen? You have something that might be approaching a minimal viable product, which you didn't have before.
And the thing about it is, when you find people in the ecosystem that have different skills than you, the fact of the matter is you're going to learn from each other.
We'll probably have this episode air in a few weeks, which means that there's only going to be about 30, 40 days of the 100 days left. If people are hearing this and they're just hearing about 100 days of Trailhead, 100 days of app for the first time, is it like shucks,
join,
see you next year, or join the bandwagon?
Totally join the bandwagon, jump right in and everything, because this whole initiative is about us in the ecosystem, each individual one of us taking steps to spend time to make ourselves better professionally. So whether you do this 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 100 days, you're better and you have more skills than you did in the beginning. And one thing that I do really, really want to say is last year there was someone that said, I failed.
Oh.
And this was heartbreaking to me because I really, really think we need to reframe failure. I was talking about failure one day and I said, I don't really think of it as failing. I think of things as iterating to success. You know, you get a little bit closer each individual time. You just keep going. So the thing about it is, if you got into it 15 days and you had a life event and you missed a few days, you didn't fail.
Right.
You know, jump right back on it. Pick up where you left off. If you left off on day 15, fine, you're quote unquote behind. Who cares? Say this is day 16 for me. And, you know, just keep moving on and go on. Now, on the official 100 days of code, they make you start over at 1. I say just pick up where you left off, keep on going, and each time just try to do better and better.
Because failure is inherent to, I mean, I can't necessarily speak to the admin process, but it's part of life for a development process.
True. The thing about it is I don't care who you are, you're not going to write perfect code blocks. That's just the reality of it.
Not the first 4 times, maybe not the first 40 times, unless maybe you're on Stack Exchange and you've already, grabbed something from somebody who already went through the 40 times to get there. Then, your first iteration's not what you're going to be putting into production.
And that's normal. And I think that what I really believe is we don't talk enough about how we got somewhere. We just always show, oh, here I am, and everything is great. Well, there was a process to get there, and oftentimes, I mean, I would say without fail, we had people helping us along the way. I can't imagine anybody going anywhere completely solo. I can't even imagine. And we have little stumbling blocks. Everybody does. And the more that we normalize that, the more we're going to all succeed.
And I mean, to bring that full circle, how many years ago was that workshop from Chris Duarte?
2015.
2015. So 5 years ago, you started down this journey and here you are. Well, Rachel, it was excellent talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. Any other shout outs or advice that you want to give to somebody who's doing the 100 days?
I just want to really thank Jessica for always being my study buddy and, dragging me along on those days that I just don't feel like it, because that does happen. I want to thank all of our Phoenix Salesforce Saturday people. You guys are amazing. The community is you, and we wouldn't have that community without you. WIT devs and all these wonderful groups like Rad Women and so forth. It's so great to know that we can be there to support each other, and to all the wonderful allies out there like yourself, Josh. So thank you, everybody. This is what the community is supposed to be about sharing and sharing knowledge and cheering each other on. And you guys for 100 Days of Trailhead are doing a phenomenal job. So go get them.
Go get them indeed. I want to touch on that point that Rachel mentioned, that we don't talk about the journey enough. Because I agree, and it's one of the reasons we started this podcast, because that journey is often about the community and about the community uplifting itself, whether it's a project to help out another developer or time spent on the Stack Exchange or trying to help everyone learn. And as we noted, 100 Days of Trailhead is ongoing, but all you need is a Twitter account and some time. Head on over to 100daysoftrailhead.com to find out more, because we are better together, Ohana. And that's our show. Thank you for listening. My huge thanks to Rachel for the conversation, and a huge thanks to everybody involved in making 100 Days of Trailhead happening. If you'd like to learn more about this podcast, head on over to developer.salesforce.com/podcast, where you can hear old episodes, see show notes, and have links to your favorite podcast service. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you next week.